Now, let us turn to a wonderful person, an exceptional speaker, a young, fine politician who has chosen to let his tone of voice to this very important International Aerospace Symposium gathering at ICESCO headquarters. Be patient, I'm gonna read a very big CV. His Excellency Youness Sekkouri. His Excellency holds a PhD in strategy from the Higher Institute of Commerce and Business Administration. His thesis focuses on analysis of political risk in strategic decisions, case of public policy reforms in Morocco. His Excellency holds 2 executive MBAs from École des Ponts Business School in Paris and Fox School of Business from Temple University, United States. His Excellency was also part of high-level think tank on post-COVID strategies as part of the program developed with the father of adaptive leadership theory, Professor Ronald Heifetz of the Harvard Kennedy School Network. His Excellency is a laureate of Aspen Institute of Paris, preceded by a degree in state engineer in telecommunications from the National Institute of Posts and Telecommunications in Rabat. Excellency, prior to his appointment as a minister, was Dean and Managing Director of Africa region of École des Ponts Business School. Your Excellency, our audience virtually and present in this hall, very much eager to listen your words on this very important symposium. Please, floor is yours, sir.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين. Excellency and dear friend, General Director of ICESCO, Excellencies, Ministers, Excellencies and distinguished guests and intellectuals and researchers and ambassadors, and I'm very, of course, you set the expectations too high with the CVs that you're reading. Where is? Yes, you're here, and I suppose that all the guests here do have exceptional and very exceptional CVs. And first of all, I would like to thank you for organizing this exceptional international symposium on space industry and workforce. I think that this is a unique experience where you're building something that is authentically unique. You're creating the nexus, you're creating the space between so many areas. Space today, as you said, Your Excellency, is one of the promising areas for the future in terms of development, in terms of research, but also in terms of employment and economy. The interaction with space is no more the one that we used to have a couple of decades ago. The interaction with space is now definitely anchored in the daily business, and it can be anchored in the public policies. You quoted a couple of public policies that can be really helped through the industries of space. The organization of this symposium is really key for those who will have to think on the necessary modelings that we will need to come up with for the future of our countries and of our nations. What you said, Your Excellency, is very important because you kind of depicted a picture where we need to make sure that the industry, government, university, workforce market, they need to converge, they need to talk, they need to dialogue. But the question is, under which state of mind, under which tools, under which theories, business modelings? The major difference, of course, when you compare the usual business, the usual investments, when you compare them to the space investments, is of course the cycle that you have. The money does not turn with the same speed. So people who work on space need to be patient. They will need to develop a lot of intuition because things will come up in the future. And definitely, like any new topic for countries like Morocco, for instance, there is a need for a public-private partnership and a public-public partnership. So the challenge for us today is, first of all, to identify which level of maturity we want to operate in. It's a nonsense to think that from the beginning, developing countries can explore the whole set of possibilities that the space industries offer. It's definitely not the case and cannot be the case. One example, just to present an analogy, is what we did when we had to invest in two areas. The first one is the car industry, which is 1,000 times less complex than the space industry. So we had to develop a policy where we could bring direct foreign investors, and we worked with these direct foreign investors. We were very aggressive so that we could provide space, fiscal policies, training policies, and so many policies, public policies, so that we have the first investment. And once you have the first investment, we had to work on complementary policies like the trade policies, so that once these cars are produced, they can be exported. And then we could have the second investor. And then we created the ecosystem. And then the small and very small businesses could work around these big investors. The second example is what we did for some transportation in cities. We had to develop public-public-private partnerships and public-private partnerships for decades so that we can have big investments that the government could not afford directly, or the private sector will never do alone, for the risk it presents and for the EBITDA that you can imagine for the companies that can operate the system. The challenge here is the business model. So the business model needs, of course, to push the government in order to use the existing institutions, and we do have some. Maybe we will listen to the representatives to the Moroccan institutions that work on space. Morocco has already 2 satellites, so that we can see what kind of partnerships we can explore with international partners in terms of governmental partnerships with private sector. Then we definitely need a dedicated training policy. We are 2 ministers here in charge of training, Minister of Higher Education and Innovation and R&D, and myself as part of the vocational training. But we definitely need the training that can support the maturity level that we target for the next 10 years. But of course, let's be very pragmatic. What we will target, of course, will be service-based. The services that we can provide. When a satellite is launched, as we could see, this beautiful picture, this nursery of stars, this is how they call it. It's a nursery of stars. This is where tens of stars are born. I mean, behind you have a couple of, you have software, you have hardware, you have I mean, a lot of dedicated technologies. So partnerships we need, of course, to craft are essential to the future. So our first target is to position ourselves into the radar of investors. And for us to do so, we need to be very, very, very courageous, and we need to invest in terms of infrastructure and human resources so that we can be attractive. Of course, personally, and I guess ministers present here, and we have also Madame Hayar, who is also part of besides her title as a minister, she's also a researcher, and she comes from academia. I think that our target today, our challenge today is to understand from the experts what types of partnerships are possible. How can we leverage our universities, private universities, public universities? How can we work with small enterprises? How can we develop specialized fiscal policies? How can we develop specialized training policies? What kind of subsidies we can provide as a government to these policies so that they can be very efficient? What metrics can we develop so that we can measure space dedicated policies in terms of training, but also of investment? Of course, a country like ours needs to target big investors, and these big investors need to find a way to connect their investment to an existing market. So if we are not a player in the market, definitely we cannot be just a supplier because there are so many possible suppliers. So the idea is to have this double hat, being a player, part of the investment, but also supplier of human resources, technological platform, and all this can work only with a strong and very strong governmental will. And I think 3 ministers present with His Excellency today is a proof of this engagement in favor of this important new area that we will explore together. Hopefully, we will learn a lot from you and from the findings and from the conclusions of this symposium. And we're very humbled, really, to listen to you and to all the intellectuals here so that we can get the right sequence and try to reframe the way we approach this sector that we don't know much. Thanks a lot for taking the initiative.